Hello and welcome to Postbag with me, Chanel Shay Calvin. Well, Lee is on a bit of a break at the moment, so you've got me for the next half an hour or so. I'll be taking a regular look back over some of the highlights from this week here on Big Centre TV, which includes taking a trip to an Anglo-Saxon village and looking at the time that I met George Windsor. Now, it's not the George that you may be thinking of, and I also have a special message for two of our viewers later on in the show. Now you'd like to get in touch with us, and there are plenty of ways to do so. On social media, just look us up at Big Centre TV, or if you want to send us an email, then it's postbag@bigcentre.tv. Or if you feel like sending us a letter, then our address is Postbag, Big Centre TV, 14A Lower Hall Lane, Walsall, WS1 1RL. Now for a look back at some of the things we've been enjoying this week, and let's start off with our news programme In Our House, which is presented and aimed at our younger viewers. And this week's show featured clocks, Bhangra, old cars, otters and gulls. Now let's take a look at the creature feature section of the show.
With us is Paul. Paul, can you tell us a little bit about the otters, please?
These are our Asiatic short-clawed otters. They're native to Southeast Asia, India and China. They differ from our own otters in the fact that they're slightly smaller. They do share some things in common, so they live in rivers, lakes and streams, same as our otters do. But they also live in mangrove swamps, which we don't obviously have here.
So are these otters protected species, and why?
They are a protected species. They're listed as vulnerable in the wild, and primarily the reason for that is because of loss of habitat. Obviously man's effect has reduced the habitat that they have available to them.
The information here says short-clawed otters have very small webbing between their toes to help them swim. Their feet are very sensitive and they can find prey by touch alone. They live in family groups with one breeding pair and their young. They can have 1 to 5 pups per litter.
Now on our property programme, Midlands at Home, Rebecca Jane reviewed an area in the Midlands to see what it had to offer. Let's take a look.
This week's Spotlight area is the Jewellery Quarter. The Jewellery Quarter is an area of Birmingham situated in the south of the Hockley area of the city centre. There is a population of around 3,000 people, and this unique area dates back more than 250 years and is still home to over 500 jewellery businesses. A designated conservation area with over 200 listed buildings, it has been described by English Heritage as a unique historic environment in England, a national treasure, which has few, if any, parallels in Europe. Historically, the Jewellery Quarter has been the birthplace of many pioneering advancements in industrial technology. At its peak in the early 1900s, the Jewellery Quarter employed over 30,000 people. However, due to foreign competition and lack of demand, the industry declined throughout the 20th century. For 2 centuries, the Jewellery Quarter existed as a trade and manufacturing area. The advent of shops opening to the public is a recent phenomenon, with the majority of retail outlets springing up since the 1970s, and now the area is widely known as a place for both the trade and public to browse and buy the finest jewellery products at the keenest prices. Whether you're looking for diamonds, pearls, engagement rings to clocks, you'll find lots of choice from some of the leading jewellery experts. The Jewellery Quarter is Europe's largest concentration of businesses involved in the jewellery trade, which produces 40% of all the jewellery made here in the UK. It is also home to the world's largest assay office, which hallmarks around 12 million items a year. As well as being a hub for creative businesses, the Jewellery Quarter is also being transformed into an urban village, with contemporary apartments being built from prominent historic buildings alongside brand new builds.
That was Rebecca Jane taking a look at the Jewellery Quarter. Now, as I mentioned in the introduction, I had the honour of meeting George Windsor. Now, this George Windsor is not part of the royal family, but he is a local singer-songwriter. George has been signed with one of the biggest producers in the music industry, as his clients include the likes of Lady Gaga. Now, I had to kick off this interview by discussing his name. Let's take a look. Before we talk about your career and how it sort of progressed, your name first. George Windsor.
Yeah.
Do people sort of, obviously don't get you confused, but does that name sort of help or does it sort of hinder or anything?
We have issues with Google. If we type George Windsor in, we get the royal baby.
Oh, bless you.
So there is a slight confusion, but obviously I'm a grown-up, baby's a
baby.
baby, so, you know, it's nice in a way, I suppose, the royal family having George. I love the name, so yeah, but it is an issue with Google.
I guess it makes it more memorable as well, to be fair, because people won't forget your name.
No, who's that singer? Let me think. Baby, royal baby.
George Windsor.
Yeah,
There we go.
I've had that a couple of times.
So
yeah.
moving to your music industry, just want to get that out first. How did it all start and how did you get to the point that you are today then?
When I was younger, I started with theatre. Now, theatre to me, it was my everything at the time. You know, I was doing all the West End shows, I was doing them in my local towns, but then that changed. I decided I wanted to go into pop music.
Oh, wow.
I was young at the time. You know, my parents were playing me all influential music, and that's all I wanted to do. I didn't want to do theatre. So that's how the music started. Then went on to vocal lessons, and obviously, to start with, wasn't so great. Yeah.
It's got to be a really tough industry to go into, I guess.
It was really tough to start with, you know, trying to get the attention, you know, to not in a way as to get a fan base, but to get noticed by the professionals was really hard. I did struggle and it did knock me back slightly, but you know, we're here today.
Exactly.
Things did take off, so we're slowly getting there.
One thing I love about your story, like we were talking about it earlier, the fact that you contacted so many producers and people in the industry. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, so originally I went into a studio, it was my school studio, and obviously, you know, they all have funding, so it wasn't the best studio at the time, but it was okay.
That was recording artist George Windsor. And if you check out this episode on Catch Up, you can hear his new song, Acceptance. Now, moving on to our movie review programme, Bummywood Jammywood, film critic Carl Jones has been taking a look at some of the biggest cinema releases. Now, this next clip was actually taken from an episode that premiered last week, but we had extra showings throughout this week, so it kind of counts. Anyway, Carl shared a special report from Comic-Con where fans got the chance to see some footage from the upcoming Star Wars movie, and I have managed to get my hands on it.
Real sets, practical effects.
You've been here, but you don't know this story.
Nothing's changed, really. I mean, everything's changed, but nothing's changed. That's the way you want it to be, really. To see the way the technology has evolved, and yet keeping one foot in the pre-digital world.
It couldn't be more exciting. It's still surreal.
We are here on day one of Star Wars Episode 7.
Yeah.
How incredible is that?
I can die now.
All right.
My whole life has led to this moment. I'm in heaven.
I think we've worn the suit out probably quicker than we expected because every time you meet someone, they just want to hug it.
Getting back to the old days, the old ways of doing things.
JJ's trying to make sure these movies have a physicality to them. We truly are out in a desert, a real desert.
Star Wars. I'd burn for Star Wars.
And I'm just going to bring this character to life.
You don't get to build an X-Wing every day or a Millennium Falcon. Every day I come to work smiling.
Energy and action!
You have to pause, take a breath, slow down, and really not freak out.
It's really interesting just seeing it from that perspective. Now, sticking to the theme of films, well, this weekend you can enjoy our independent movies as part of Film Fest. On Saturday you can see a selection of 5 short films by different directors. This includes an animated horror called 1 Foot from Hell and Dog Day, which is a bittersweet drama. We also have 2 contemporary dramas, which is called First Impressions and Home Free, and finally a documentary about photography called Belinda Mardunkel Hyde. Well, that's all for this part of Postbag, but please join me after the break. Welcome back. Now, Thursday the 30th of July marks the anniversary of Dominic and Holly's relationship, and the happy couple have now got engaged. So earlier on, the team here at Big Centre gathered together to share this little message.
Congratulations, Dominic and Holly!
Now, if you want to invite us to the wedding, just simply use the Postbag email address. No, honestly, we really do wish you both all the best for the future. Well, now it's time to share some of your messages. Lee Howard wrote in to show his appreciation to our rock programme Amped, which is presented by Johnny Doom. He also said that we need more of this on our telly boxes. Well, in case you haven't seen it yet, Amped is on Wednesdays and Fridays. Now on our history programme, Doorstep History, Des Tong interviewed singer-songwriter Sissy Stone, who has such a beautiful, soulful voice. Well, Malachi commented in to say that Sissy was looking good, which I have to agree with, and Darren Phillips said, great interview, really interesting. Now, also on Doorstep History, historian Andrew Lowndes came back, and one of our viewers sent in a lovely email which read, well done, Big Centre TV. Thank you for inviting Andrew Lowndes back into the studio. This time to talk astronomy and the fly past of Pluto. Excellent interview and so interesting. This man is really knowledgeable about so many subjects. More please, in fact, a lot more. And I'm sure many viewers would agree with me. Thank you for inviting him back to your studio. Well, we're glad that you're enjoying it, and I'm sure that Andrew Lowndes will make more appearances in the future. Well, now it's time for a look back at what has been featured in our news. Well, in an attempt to combat inactivity, Birmingham City Council, England Athletics and Sport England have launched a new running scheme together with the Great Run Company. Run Birmingham aims to encourage 5,000 people in the city that are currently inactive to start running, with an ultimate aim of inspiring around 100,000 people to run on a regular basis. Lois Swinnerton has this report.
Running, jogging or even walking, will you be pledging to get off the couch and get fit? With over 80% of residents in Birmingham not physically active, a new programme, Run Birmingham, aims to encourage more people to lace up and head out.
What we're trying to do with the team that we've put together for this is to create as many local opportunities for people to start running, and that might be in the first instance that they jog or they walk or they push the pram or they walk the dog, but they start moving and being active regularly. So what we're trying to do is create opportunities in local areas like this or anywhere across the city of Birmingham, whether it's in a park as beautiful as this one or in the city centre, maybe like East Side, around those areas, that just is local to the community that lives, eats, breathes, drinks, works there and works for them. So it's the community that's going to make this live.
The programme is building on the city's active park scheme and will provide a range of courses and events to suit runners of all abilities, and underpinning this is a strong sense of community.
What we know is that people need a whole range of motivations to get involved in physical activity. One of the biggest barriers in a city like Birmingham is cost, because of the levels of deprivation that we've got here. But cost is by no means the only barrier, so that we know that people are much more likely to come and be physically active regularly if they can build it into their social life and their community, their sense of who they are and their friends. We've all been there, haven't we? You know, we've agreed to go to something with our mate and we try and call it off, and she rings and she says, "Come on, you've got to go." So there's something about, using people's friendship networks, building into their social lives. We know that if people can do that, not only do they get the benefits of being physically active, but they also get to feel that they're part of something as well, so that it tackles social isolation in there as well.
One person making her pledge to get off the couch and into her trainers is Chelsea.
My pledge would be to run more, because I've not long had a baby, so I want to be more healthier. Me and my mum are going to start doing runs more or less every week now. It's a bit of company and you can talk as you run. So yeah, I think it is important to run with someone.
To get the project on its feet, Run Birmingham has been awarded just over £1.5 million of lottery funding through Sport England, and this is also supported by investment from Birmingham City Council.
We look at running right across the country, and we look at different activities in a place, but we've never before looked at every activity around running in one place, such as in Birmingham. So for us it's a great opportunity to learn how we can grow participation and also vary the offer to people to give them that incentive to get off that sofa and actually to get active. The parks are a great facility that people don't appreciate, and quite often, of course, some of the mentality is, don't run, don't step on the grass, and Birmingham, part of the challenge will be to make sure that it's available. But we're really saying that there can be a real inspiration of getting outdoors, particularly a nice sunny day like today, but get out there and use the facilities better. So there's over 50 parks in Birmingham that are underutilised, and yet it's a safe environment to be in. You can run without worrying about the traffic and so forth.
And the project understands how important it is to promote healthier lifestyles.
We want people to be active because it's better for you. We've got a strapline there that is sort of get together, feel better, and run Birmingham. That's what we want people to do. I think if you run or if you move regularly and in an activity sense, then you're going to feel better in yourself, and you're going to deliver better on all the things you do in your life, whether that's work, play, home, family, all of that.
With lots of runs across the city to train for, there will be many people pounding the pavements in an attempt to establish Birmingham as a city of activity for all. Lois Sunnerton for The Midland in Aston Park.
Well, it's now time to take a trip back into the mists of time to an Anglo-Saxon village. Lindsay Smith reports from the Brockwood Animal Sanctuary.
Brockwood Animal Sanctuary in Sedgley has become the unlikely home of an Anglo-Saxon village. The project belongs to the Age of Penda, a reenactment group based locally. Richard Colley explained how the village began.
We were training on, pub car parks and people's gardens and stuff. We needed a permanent base, and we were just looking for somewhere that got a patch of ground that was fenced off, because you can't still go and swing swords about in the park. It doesn't really go down too well. So we were just looking for somewhere to be, and we came and spoke to Neil, who runs the sanctuary here, to see if they'd got a spare paddock we could use. And he gave us this field, but he actually suggested we build something permanent here, which is something we'd always loved the idea of doing anyway, but never had the opportunity. So we started off just putting up a couple of little shelters and tents to make it look like an encampment, and it's gradually grown from that. But we've got no budget for it, so everything, the materials will have to be foraged or donated, and we just, in our spare time, come down here and add a bit to the buildings each week. But our end goal is to have a hall, a feasting hall, but also something that's authentic, built with the authentic materials, so we can show it to school children and have people come around and see what a Saxon village would have looked like.
The group puts on displays for the public, inviting other groups to take part.
We've come as guests of the Age of Penda guys to put on a show, to attack the village and do some living history, to hopefully educate some of the public and show them how Vikings and Saxons lived.
And why do you think it's important to do things like that for the public?
Well, it's good to show the heritage and the history of the country, and if you can learn from mistakes of history, then you hopefully don't make the same mistakes again in the future.
The group are hoping to continue expanding the village in the future, planning to use it for educational purposes. Lindsay Smith for The Midland in Sedgley.
Okay, so that's your Postbag for this week. But don't forget, if there's anything you'd like to talk to us about, then on social media, which is Facebook and Twitter, just look us up at Big Centre TV. Or if you want to send us an email, then it's postbag@bigcentre.tv, and our postal address is Postbag, Big Centre TV, 14A Lower Hall Lane, Walsall, WS1 1RL. Well, I'll be back with What's On Monday night at 7, and you can see Lee on Crossroads check-in and also on What's On. And Postbag will be back at the same time next week. Now to play us out, here is George Wilson performing on What's On.
I've got to be a celebrity, you know. Take me down to the city walls where I've been before, you see. You say, just take me to the west coast of Alabama where she shakes her body to the west coast. Louisiana, she shake my body and my heart is racing at the west coast. In the west coast. Bring me down to skin and bone, oh, everything I've been before.